So yeah, as I said, my name is Annabelle. I'm a holistic psychotherapist and life coach for women at Illuminations in JLT. So I provide a range of services from cognitive behavioral therapy to mindfulness to holistic psychotherapy and also transformational coaching. So I work with a wide range of issues for women, so things like stress and anxiety, any feelings of like low mood, so anyone who's working through life transitions, so like changes in relationships or work as well. And my approach is very tailored depending on the needs of the individual as well. So today we're here to talk about life balance and the art of self-care. Okay, so we'll just get started. Okay, so what actually is work-life balance? So life balance and work-life balance is when we experience a sense of well-being across multiple areas of life. So we'll get into this in a bit more detail shortly. Life balance is something that's unique to each person, so it is subjective. While we do have a framework, each person is able to say, you know, I feel a sense of well-being and a sense of life balance when my life looks this way, and that's going to vary depending on the individual. And the last thing that I want to point out is that it's something that's always evolving. So it's not necessarily an end state. That, you know, once we achieve life balance, then we already have that. And once we achieve life care, self-care, we already have that. It's something that, you know, we need to constantly work on. It is a cycle, and we need to be continuously engaged as well. And as our priorities and circumstances evolve and change, and then we're going to change with that, and we're going to grow and develop and change our actions in alignment with that. And then what is self-care? Self-care is when we take deliberate and intentional steps to take care of our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. So we're actively taking time out to take care of ourselves in multiple different ways. Okay, so why all the fuss about life balance and self-care? So I'm sure you've seen, you know, it's all over the media. Everyone's always talking about how can our life be more balanced and how can I take better care of myself? So here are some of the benefits, which I'm sure you will all feel familiar with. So we have better health when our life is in balance. So that's things like less stress, less anxiety, less depression. You know, our physical health is better. You know, we might experience things like less high blood pressure, less headaches. So it's really, really, really important for our health that we're able to have that type of balance across our life, and also that we're able to take time out for self-care. It also gives us more energy and vitality. So, you know, when we take that time out to have self-care, we feel more vibrant, we feel more enthusiastic, you know, we've got so much more energy and vitality to help us get through our day. It's also responsible for stronger relationships. So I'm sure you've all heard that phrase that you need to fill up your own cup. So we say that, you know, how are you supposed to, you know, take care of your relationships and take care of those people that you love and those people that you really care about when, you know, you don't have anything for yourself, you know, you don't feel full up, you feel stressed, and you feel like you don't have enough time. That's when you do take those actions to make sure that your cup is full, then you're able to give to other people, and therefore your relationships are a lot stronger as a result. And then it's also responsible for more fulfillment. So when we take better care of ourselves, what we notice is that we feel more fulfilled and more content, because we're really secure in that feeling that, you know, our needs are taken care of and that everything's going to be fine. Okay, so I just wanted to ask if anyone wanted to contribute, you know, like what does work-life balance and life balance mean for you? So what you could do is pop in the chat function if anyone would like to share. So just give you a few minutes. Okay. Okay, so in terms of work-life balance, like we do have frameworks, like I said before. We say here that a wheel has spokes to ensure its strength and balance, and when the spokes are unequal, the ride can get very bumpy, or it can just completely break down. So while you all have your individual versions of what life balance and self-care will look like for you, I wanted to give you a bit of a framework here just to help you identify like some of the areas that you should be looking for balance in. So obviously we've got work here, and I keep mentioning work. I mean, that's a very big part of everybody's life. You know, even if your work is not necessarily in an office, you know, some people are homemakers and their work is at home. It provides us with a sense of achievement. and obviously all of the necessities that we need with which to live. So it's a very, very important aspect of this wheel that we're looking at. And the problem is that nowadays sometimes we can become quite unbalanced, and we spend too much time doing that, and then all of these other areas don't have enough time and attention. Okay, so the next area that we want to look at is our relationships. And then, you know, are we spending enough time with our family? Are we spending enough time with those that we love, you know, our friends? Are we really focusing on our relationship with ourselves as well? So this is another important aspect of life balance. I'm sure you're all familiar with these. So we've obviously got our physical well-being and self-care as well. So that's things like exercise and movement. Doesn't necessarily have to be at the gym, but, you know, are we taking enough time out to get, you know, enough steps for the day? You know, are we stretching? And, you know, all of those important aspects of taking care of our physical health as well. We've also got sleep. So sleep's another really important one. So this is a wheel that I designed based on years of practice with clients and also patients in healthcare, as to, you know, what areas really make up these key parts of life balance and self-care. We've got our energy and vitality. So we need to take care of that as well. So, you know, doing activities that make us feel energized and vibrant. How are we taking care of that? And, you know, just taking time to notice, you know, when we feel maybe a bit drained and a bit depleted, what are these activities that we can do that help us to feel much more energized? So taking time out for that. I've put other here as well. Others related to usually what I say is a sense of spirituality for people, or a faith and a sense of meaning and purpose. So that's something that we also really want to take care of, because it's associated again with higher levels of well-being, and helps us to improve our self-care as well. We've got rest, relaxation and recreation. So that's taking time out, you know, maybe going to the movies on the weekends, doing some sports, and doing fun things that you enjoy, fun activities with your friends and family. Nutrition is also something that I'm sure we're all very well aware of. Nutrition, interestingly, is actually linked to mood as well. So food is linked to mood. So depending on what you eat, if you eat healthy foods, you know, and vibrant foods and like a range of different colors, you're going to feel, your mood's going to feel a lot different. You're going to feel happy and satisfied and energetic, and, you know, all of these positive emotions. Whereas you might notice if you're not eating too well, these emotions will start to decrease. And you might notice things on the other end of the scale, such as like sadness, or maybe you feel a bit more stressed. So it's really important to take care of that too. And then we've also got personal development. So things like learning, maybe you want to learn a new language, learn a new skill, develop a new hobby, learn something at university, or, you know, a training course. And that's because our sense of achievement, like I mentioned before, is really important for our sense of well-being. So in positive psychology, you know, we're really focused on having goals and, you know, doing things that help you to have that sense of achievement, because when you take that away, that's a really big driving force for people, gives them energy, keeps them motivated, keeps people moving forward. And when you take that sense of achievement away, then that can cause like a lot of issues for people. So we really want to make sure that we've always got that in there as well. And then the last one is our mental and emotional well-being. So again, that's like, we're going to get into this in a lot more detail. And that's things like taking care of our mental health, you know, taking care to manage our stress and to maximize our positive emotions as well. Okay, so does anyone have any questions so far? And then I'll just continue. Okay, perfect. So I wanted to give you some really practical tools. So how I work is that while we can have discussions and I can give you all this information, like ultimately your well-being is largely in your own hands. So, you know, when we speak about developing life balance and also self-care, like there's a lot that you can do yourself as well. So I'm always encouraging people to take responsibility and also to take action. So, you know, what can you do in your own life and on a daily basis to really maximize your self-care? So here are some, again, tools that I've learned over the years are just like really, really helpful for people. So while we have the wheel, in order to be able to achieve balance and to take those self-care actions in all of the different areas, we really need to make sure that we're mentally and emotionally sound, and we have a strong sense of well-being in that area. So some of the key things that I would like to share with you, so how can we enhance our self-care? The first one that we've got here is healing through mindfulness and meditation. Okay, so I'm sure since you're all clients of Illuminations, you know probably a lot about mindfulness and meditation and why it's so important. So when we speak about being mindful, what we're actually speaking about is the practice of being attentive and paying attention in the present moment, but you're not making any judgments. So sometimes when we meditate, we might meditate on something or also nothing, but with mindfulness, what we say is it's a form of attention. Okay, so for those of you that might find things like you get stressed and you're always worried. So a lot of stress is caused by worry about the future, and a lot of anxiety is caused by worry about the future. So we can tell mostly where someone's mind is based on how they feel. So if you find that you're always thinking, oh no, I have this to do tomorrow, and next week this is going to happen, next year this is going to happen, and that all builds up, or they're going to think this about me, and all these different thoughts, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety. So when you're mindful, you're not really in your thinking mind, you're more in the present moment. And that's a really, really, really nice space to be in, because on the other side of things, when we think about the past too much and things like I should have said X, Y, and Z, and I wish I hadn't done that, and I wish things had been different. When we think in that way, we tend to have feelings of sadness, and then if that goes any further, then possibly feelings of depression as well. So one of the best things that we can do just to take care of ourselves is to have that sense of being present and to be present in the moment. Okay, so mindfulness really helps us to deal with difficult thoughts and emotions. And when we're mindful, we're able to let them go. So we can be really a lot more fulfilled in the present moment, and just a lot more, let's say, objective with the way in which we're feeling and experiencing life. Okay, so we're really engaged in the present moment. So some things that we can do to help us be more mindful. So we have a formal mindfulness practice, and then we also have an informal mindfulness practice. So a formal mindfulness practice would be, I'd love to give you an exercise to do. So something that we do is we take some time to center ourselves and taking a few breaths. And then once we've done that, we want to really tap into our senses. So taking some time to notice things that you can see around you. So I can see a bottle of water, a computer, you can see some things outside. So really taking that time to look around. And I'd like to invite you all to do this with me, actually, and just experience what that feels like when you're not thinking. Okay, and then you want to also take some time to notice things that you're hearing. So I can hear birds, I can hear the AC, I can hear my computer buzzing. So really taking time out to notice what you're hearing as well. And this is what happens when we're paying attention in the present moment and being mindful. And then the next thing is to notice things that you can feel. So, can you feel sometimes people can't feel their feet. Can you feel your feet on the floor? So this helps us to be really, really grounded. Can you feel your back in the chair? Maybe some of you have headphones that you can feel, how do I really feel? That's being mindful. And that's a formal mindfulness exercise. And it's also a grounding exercise if anyone has panic attacks or anxiety. You can actually use that exercise just to really bring you into the present moment. You want to also focus on things that you can smell as well. So if there's any sort of smells, maybe you can smell some paper or your perfume, something like that. And then if you want to take it to the last step in that exercise is to think about what you can taste. So sometimes people, it's difficult if you're not prepared. Sometimes people want to have like a piece of gum, or like they want to have something that they're able just to focus on what they're tasting. And then that just fully brings you in touch with all your senses and really into the present moment. So that's mindfulness. I do teach mindfulness as well at Illuminations if anyone would like to find out more. The next thing that I wanted to just mention as well is that one of the most important things that we can do for our own self-care is to manage our stress. And this starts with education, what is happening to our body when we're going through fight or flight. So I do a lot of education on this as well. What's really going on? What's your level of self-awareness? What are your triggers? Is it not having enough time? Is it having too much to do? Is it worried about what people think? What are these triggering thoughts and situations that really cause you to go into that activated stress response? So when our stress response is activated, we call it fight or flight. what's really happening is there's a lot of hormones in our body that are preparing us to either run away from a threat or to fight it. So this was really helpful back in cavemen days when we were all running away from lions and tigers. But nowadays, this, the threats, as we call them, or the stressors, are things like deadlines, multitasking, too many things to do. So it's different. The stress response that we have, it used to be adaptive. It's not very adaptive anymore. So it just causes a lot of strain on our body. So it's about understanding what are your triggers, and then what are your coping mechanisms that you have at the moment and behaviors that you respond to stress with. So some of these can actually be helpful. So healthy coping mechanisms can be speaking to friends, speaking to a therapist, going to the gym, and going for a walk, doing mindfulness. And some of us have a lot of healthy coping mechanisms already and coping behaviors. However, sometimes we can have what we call unhelpful coping mechanisms as well, things like avoidance, unhealthy behaviors like smoking or, overeating, and, different things can come in. So it's about understanding what they are, and then taking some time to try and learn some more healthier versions of that is also really important for managing stress. And also understanding what helps you to relieve stress. So, some of the things like I've mentioned already, exercise, going for a walk, speaking to your loved ones, meditating. So, what is it that you really need? Because we're all different. Some people get stressed going to the gym. Other people, it's just everything that they need to do it every day, and that really helps them. So it's about really tuning into, what do you need, and, what does your self-care look like in that area of managing stress? Okay. So the next really important thing in terms of self-care that I wanted to share with you was practicing self-compassion. So again, a lot of how we feel is to do with what we're thinking. So we speak about, being compassionate to myself. What does that actually mean? So most people will have at some point in their life experienced what we call a harsh inner critic. So that's that voice that says things to you like, I'm not good enough, I should have done better, I always fail, things never work out for me. This really attacking inner voice that really zaps our energy. And what it does is it decreases your level of positive emotions. So then you start to experience a negative mood state. So you might notice that you feel a bit sad or tired, for example, stressed again. And, I always say to people, if someone spoke to you in a certain way, or, they weren't being kind to you, or they were being, really harsh and critical of you, most likely you would put up some barriers and you say, stop speaking to me like that, or I don't like it, or you might remove yourself from that situation. However, most of us do it to ourselves, which is, it's interesting, because if it's someone outside of you, you're going to say, no, stop, I'm not comfortable with that. But when it's you almost don't really notice it because it's just going on in the background. But it has the same effect as if someone was in that room saying these things to you. So it does cause stress. It does stand in the way of you achieving your goals. It really does get in the way of you experiencing, positive emotions and well-being and vitality and all of those positive emotions that we would love for you to experience. So I would really recommend to try and identify. Sometimes you don't even really know it's there. Try and identify, what is that voice? What's that critical voice? What is it saying? And, how can I speak in a kinder way to myself? So we do this exercise in self-compassion where we ask you to speak to yourself as you would speak to a good friend. So you can write yourself almost like a letter with the problem that you're experiencing, and you have to respond as if it was your friend that told you, not you. And then notice, what does that voice sound like? And what does that, how does that make me feel? How is this different? So, that's, again, a much nicer space in which to be. In terms of self-care. I mean, if anyone has any experience with this exercise, I'd really like to hear about it. It just has so many amazing effects on our body. It's good for our relationships as well. You can imagine if you've got this inner critic going on in the back of your mind and you're trying to, make friends and have conversations with people, and, it kind of gets in the way of a lot of things. It gets in the way of our performance at work as well. It's always in the background saying negative things. How are you supposed to perform to your best ability? So yeah, I would really recommend doing some work on reducing your inner critic and developing self-compassion. Okay, so the next exercise is practicing gratitude. So why is gratitude so important? gratitude is a really powerful practice. It helps us to release negative and toxic emotions, because what it does is it changes our perspective. Because, again, if you're in a cycle of focusing on things that are going wrong in your life, or, focusing on negativity, or you're stuck in a negative cycle, sometimes it's really hard to get out of that. And it's kind of like self-fulfilling, because what happens is that cycle causes your mood to feel bad. And then that then encourages more negative thinking and more kind of, so it just goes round and round. And it's sometimes quite hard to get out of that. Or, sometimes, like, for example, if you wake up in the morning and something happens and you're like, oh, well, I knew I was going to have a bad day. And then it becomes self-fulfilling, because you notice all of the things that are going wrong, and it really kind of gets in the way, takes your energy away as well. So it really, when we're in that kind of mindset, it gets in the way of you being able to take care of yourself in the way that you need to. So when we practice gratitude, honestly, your whole perspective just changes, and it's got some really fantastic health benefits as well. So like reduced anxiety and depression, and it's good for your immune system, helps you to be resilient as well. So they did some studies at the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Martin Seligman, he's the pioneer of positive psychology. He did a lot of studies on gratitude, and what he found was that he got participants to practice gratitude for 5 days, keep a diary of things that they were grateful for 5 days, and they experienced all these health benefits for 6 months after. Like, that's amazing. So if you can really, take some time each day to practice what you're grateful for. So that can be, sometimes people do find this quite difficult. That could be in different areas, like things that I'm grateful for at work, things that I'm grateful for in relation to my family, things that I'm grateful for in relation to myself. So things like health, or, different things like that. So really taking time to practice gratitude is one of the best things that you can do for self-care. Again, it just puts you into a much more positive place, and then you're able to then manage all of your thoughts and your behaviors from there. So I'd really recommend doing that as well. Okay, so yeah, sounds obvious, but taking time for renewing activities. So again, in positive psychology, we highlight the importance of positive emotions. And so how do you experience joy? How do you experience happiness? And the more positive emotions that you can generate for yourself, the better that you're going to feel. And, that's going to take the limelight in your life, as opposed to the opposite of more negative emotions. So yeah, things like being content, happy, joyful, and forgiving, I think we can also put in there. So, what kind of activities help you to feel that way? So, start to monitor that, and then also prioritizing that. So I think, for women, it can sometimes be hard because we're natural caretakers and natural nurturers. So sometimes it's hard to think, well, I'm just going to take that time for myself, because we're programmed to be like, oh no, well, I have to be in service, and I have to do all of these things for everybody else first. So I think also understanding what it is that you need, and trying to learn how to take time for yourself, and how to prioritize your own needs. So part of that is understanding what's draining your energy. So if, talking to a certain person makes you feel really zapped all the time, then, try and minimize that and do that less. Or, if eating certain foods makes you feel really lethargic, try not to do that as much, and really focus on the things that make you feel really vibrant and alive. So we call that maximizing our energy givers, and then minimizing energy drainers. So again, another activity that you can do there is, just make a list and really focus on, what gives me energy, what doesn't. And it can be something really simple. Sometimes people will come to me and say things like, oh, I'm just really tired. And I'll say, well, you're drinking enough water. And they'll be like, well, actually, no, I didn't even think about that. So, really just taking the time to dig deep, sit with a piece of paper, try and work out, where's your time and energy going? And then try and refocus some of that on things that are actually good for you, okay, and helping you to feel well. So I've got nurture your connection with those you love. So yeah, sense of connection is really, really, really important for our well-being. So they've done these blue zone studies throughout the world. It's National Geographic. What they did was they went to different areas like Costa Rica and Okinawa, and they studied why people lived so much longer in these areas. So some people living to 100 and above compared to other areas of the world where it's a lot less. And they identified certain, reasons and factors that these places had in common. And one of the main ones was that there's their sense of connection. So there's a sense of community, you know, there's the relationships with the family and the friends, but then there's also the sense of connection within the community. And this was something that was really, really important. So especially, you know, we've all come out of this time with COVID as well, where we haven't necessarily been able to see people as much as we might have liked, family, friends, we haven't been able to travel. So, you know, really getting that sense of connection back again. You know, it can be things like webinars, Zoom calls, phone calls, you know, hopefully seeing people, you know, back to seeing people in person. It is like one of the most important things that we can do. And sadly, something that we notice in terms of stress behaviors, like when I was talking about some of the unhelpful ones, sometimes when people go through a time of stress or anxiety, they actually withdraw from people. So it can be a little bit helpful in the short term, but, you know, as time goes on, it can actually become quite detrimental. So, you know, really spending time and making sure that you have those connections and keep, even though, you know, sometimes it might be difficult, but just keeping reaching out to people is something that's really, really, really important. Okay, so we've got, I've given you some tools for self-care that I think are going to be really, really helpful. And we've got the mindfulness, the managing stress, practicing gratitude, taking time out for those renewing activities, and practicing self-compassion and managing our inner critic as well. So those are the tools that I think would be the most helpful for you. And then in terms of how can we actually achieve more life balance? So, you know, I'm imagining some of you might think, oh, you know, this is great and we have all these activities, but I don't have time for anything. Okay, so how are we actually going to manage to take these actions that we need to take to make sure that our self-care is as good as it should be? Okay, so I've got time management down here. How can we manage our time? So planning is really key here. So again, whatever it is that works for you, but, you know, top performers in all areas of life have everything completely mapped out on either Excel sheets or calendars on their phone, you know, and that's going to be like, you know, time scheduled throughout the day. So even though, you know, you might have these thoughts that I don't have time to take care of myself, but what you can do is maybe set aside, it could be that you get up half an hour earlier in the morning and set that time aside. Or, you know, if it's to do with relationships, set aside some quality time, you know, 2 hours a week. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it really makes a huge difference. You know, set that time aside, get it written down, get it in the calendar. Okay, and then once you've got that plan there, it's also about developing your boundaries. Okay, so how good are you at saying no? So again, I know that a lot of people can really struggle with this. If you are someone that's not necessarily good at saying, you know, no to other people and yes to yourself, all you need to do is start with practice, you know. So, you know, there's some key things to notice or to plan for with yourself that you can think, you know, you don't necessarily even have to say no. You can say things like, oh, can I get back to you? Like if someone says, oh, let's come out, but you plan to go and get a massage, and or you know, you wanted to go to the gym and you don't want to say no, but you know that it's not good for you. This kind of example, what you want to just say is, oh, you know, can I get back to you? Or I'm not sure yet. Like it's okay to say these kind of things, and then you've got time to go away and kind of practice what it is that you want to say, or just to get a bit better at it. So yeah, really developing your boundaries, and trying to also, you know, increase your self-awareness in that area too. Like, why do you feel the need to put yourself last, or why do you feel the need to take care of everyone else's needs? Like really trying to understand, you'll know how you feel. That's how we always know what the right answer is, because we know how we feel. When something feels good and it feels right, that's our intuition, you know, that's our emotions are communicating with us. So we always say our emotions are our messengers. That's how we know. If something feels bad, it means that it's not right for you. You know, they don't necessarily teach that in school. They should. So when something feels bad or it feels off, that's, you know, you need to listen to that, because that's our internal messaging system that's there to help you understand what actions you should be taking. Okay, I've got micro habits as well as one of the key things that you can do to help you achieve more life balance and increase your self-care. So a micro habit is a really small habit that you can implement into your daily life. So say, for example, if I had the goal of improving my health and fitness, but then I don't have any time, okay? A micro habit would be something like spending, you know, 15 minutes in the morning on the bike. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to do 5 squats every time I go to the restroom. So that's a micro habit. If you're someone that wants to reduce your stress, that you think maybe I don't have time for meditation, or I don't have time to relax, I'm too stressed to manage my stress. You know, these kind of things that we tell ourselves. That can look like the micro habit would be 5 minutes of mindfulness. Just taking that time out and having, you know, 5 minutes of either like a deep breathing exercise or a mindfulness exercise. Or if it's, you know, something that helps with your stress, taking a walk, then you can also do that. So that's a micro habit. So I'd really encourage you to start using micro habits in your life as well. So the micro habit, like what I've just said there, is I told you what the end goal was. We can't really make any changes if we don't have goals. So we really need to understand where it is that we're going, and, you know, what are your goals. So I'm going to take you through like a goal setting model in a sec. And then the last thing is going to be the right mindset. So again, you know, letting go of the inner critic, practicing, you know, positive affirmations and a positive mindset is going to help you to take these actions that we need to take. Okay, so yeah, okay. So if you don't know where you're going, then it's going to be quite difficult for you to get there. So that's why we always, you know, when we're making changes and we're talking about self-care, we also always speak about the power of goals. So one of the models that is, you know, really successful for people is called the GROW model. So we use this when we're helping people to, you know, kind of reach their vision. So we've got the goals, that's like where you want to go. We've got the reality, and then we've got your obstacles and the way. So I'd really would actually like to, if anyone would like to volunteer, I would like to go through this with you on the call. However, I'm not sure if there will be any takers. You can just let me know on the chat function. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll just use myself as an example. So yeah, so again, if, for example, my goal is to increase my self-care. Okay, but we need to be very specific here. Okay, so we need to make the goal very specific. So I want to increase my self-care by managing my stress and doing more exercise. So you then need to think about what's your reality. So my reality is I don't have a lot of time, and I'm just too stressed to even think about it. So what are my obstacles? So obstacles are time. I don't have a lot of time. My mindset is probably a bit limited. So what can I do to overcome some of these obstacles? So as an example, because I don't have time, I can overcome my obstacle of not having time by implementing a micro habit of meditating 5 minutes a day. And because I also don't have time, I'm going to implement my micro habit of exercising for 10 minutes a day, but I'm going to do it 3 times. So whenever I get a lunch break, I'm going to do it in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening. And then that's a way that we can implement some of our self-care and some of our micro habits in order to reach our goals. So some of the obstacles that can come up for us, they can be resources, they can be behavioral, but they can also be thoughts. So I've mentioned some of them just now. So things like I don't have enough time, I'm too stressed, I don't have enough support, and I don't have enough resources. So these are really common things that come up. So again, I to ask you to take some time to really understand, you know, what are these obstacles? Because, you know, we all do have an idea of what we can do to improve our self-care, but somehow things get in the way, or we get in our own way. So it's about, you know, really taking time to try and understand what are these obstacles. So again, if you don't have time, can you do the micro habits? So, you know, 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. Most people will be able to do that. You know, I'm too stressed is another common one. You know, understanding, you know, what is it that you need to help you manage your stress? Things like I don't have enough support. I hear that quite often, but then, you know, just taking time to ask, you know, maybe ask your employer for help, or, you know, can I take a bit longer on my lunch break, or are there any like employee wellbeing programs that you can participate in? You know, if you don't have enough resources, like maybe you can team up with people, you know, again, ask for information, and really asking for help can help you to overcome some of these obstacles. Okay, so again, really looking at our mindset as well. So a lot of the time we have what we call limiting beliefs. So, you know, when we're trying to achieve these goals and trying to make changes, and we have this, again, this inner critic or a limiting belief, we can call it, that comes in and says things. So it's like, I can't do this, I always fail, this won't work, this is silly. So I'm sure some of you might have experienced some of these things going on like in the back of your mind. So, you know, when we're trying to achieve more life balance and self-care, we want to really, you know, look at what are these beliefs and what can I say to myself that's going to help me? So, you know, I can't do this. You need to change that with more of a positive affirmation that would be like, I can do this. Okay. And one of the tools which you can use in this circumstance is you can think about other areas in which you're successful. Okay. We call these mastery experiences. So you might say, I can't do this, but then you think, oh, wait a minute, maybe I can, because, you know, this time last year I did something similar. And you try and remember, or, you know, I'm successful in other areas of my life, so I'm going to be successful in self-care. And you want to kind of tap into these mastery experiences that you've had in other areas and use that strength to help you to increase your self-care. Things like I always fail. This is something that we would call like a negative core belief. So that's something that's maybe been persistent in multiple areas. Again, you can target that and try and identify how that's holding you back through doing things like CBT, and also just, you know, really tuning into, you know, what's my inner voice saying, and why do I think that, and, you know, what's the evidence that that's not true. So we have this thing that we call sentence starters that we use in therapy. So when you have this limiting belief coming in that says, I can't do this, you then will say to yourself, well, that's not true because, and then you start listing the things down as well. So these are some other tools that we can use to help us manage our mindset, so that we're then able to, you know, have that positive energy and enthusiasm and motivation, and to help us achieve our self-care goals. Okay, so what would be the right mindset? Because we've spoken about like a few things that I've kind of suggested that aren't necessarily helpful. But the right mindset would be what we've discussed. So the practical approach is, you know, just thinking really practically, what do you need to overcome your obstacles? Okay, so, you know, if you've got too much to do, maybe you need to delegate. You don't have time, maybe you need to try and create some more time, ask for help. If, you know, if you have children, like try and ask someone else to help you out for a short time, so you're able to go and do what it is that you need to do. So just getting really practical with yourself. Having accountability partners is, again, really, really helpful. So something that you want to do is maybe ask like a friend or a partner, a spouse, a colleague, can you help me to be accountable? So, you know, say you think, I want to go to the gym 3 times next week, or I want to meditate 3 times next week. You want to tell your accountability partner that this is what you're going to do, and they need to follow up with you at the end of the week and say, you know, did you do that? You know, this is something that really, really helps a lot of people to manage their self-care and to really achieve their goals in that area. So we spoke about also thinking about previous mastery experiences. So, you know, when was a time when things were going really well for you? See, when you tap into that, you can use that energy, and it's something really incredible because you feel energized and you feel motivated and you feel confident, and you think, well, you know, I used to be able to do that, so I'm going to now, you know, take some of that energy and apply it to my current situation, and I'm going to increase my self-care through that. Something else that you can do to help you have the right mindset is to focus on your strengths. So in positive psychology, we have a wide range of strengths that we use with people. Everyone has a different variety of strengths. So some of them can be things like leadership, energy, vitality, motivation, compassion, perspective. So like, what are your strengths that you can use in this situation that's going to really help you to be resilient in reaching this goal, and to help you manage your self-care better? And then we've also got using affirmations. So like we just mentioned already, rather than saying things like, this won't work, I can't do this, you know, we really want to say, you know, positive things to ourselves, like, oh, I can do this, and this will work. I'm successful in other areas of my life. I will be successful at this too. And, you know, you may seem or feel a bit strange doing this sometimes, but honestly, like it just has the best effect on how you feel. And it really, really, really is related to success in these areas. You know, so again, all, you know, top performers in, like, you know, sports fields and different industries, you know, they all say that they use affirmations, and, you know, they say these positive things to themselves. So, you know, this is like a really effective tool that we can use to help you increase your self-care. And then lastly, I'm going to mention it again, is practicing self-compassion. You know, just because you can't expect that you're going to be able to master your self-care if inside you're being quite unkind to yourself. You really want to take that time, you know, to just be gentle and be kind and be compassionate towards yourself. And, you know, even if you do set goals and you don't necessarily achieve them the first time, again, you know, you want to just be compassionate, see things like an experiment as well. So, you know, oh, I tried that this week and that didn't really work. Doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that you need to change it. So how can I make it better so that next week I'm going to be better? How can I change things so that I'm going to succeed next time? And, you know, you just view everything as an experiment and in a kind way as well for yourself. Okay, so that is me at the end of the presentation. Everyone's been very quiet. I wanted to find out if anyone had any questions. You can either put in the chat or you could also just use the microphone, and I'd be really happy to sit and answer questions, maybe related to your personal experience or related to the presentation. I'll be here if anyone has any questions. Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks, Annie. Okay, so I think it doesn't seem like we have any questions. So just to let you know, I am available at Illuminations. So I'm there during the weekend and sometimes on the weekend too. So I provide individual sessions for women. So as I mentioned before, it's holistic psychotherapy. I do CBT, mindfulness, and practicing a lot of the things that we spoke about here. Can help with a wide range of issues, self-care being one of them as well. And then I also provide workshops like the one that you've just been on today. I've got another few sessions coming up towards the end of the month. Some of them are on the inner critic. And then I've also got a very practical workshop coming up on self-care, which is next week, where there's a lot more participation involved. I'll get everyone to, you know, really plan out, you know, what does their self-care look like, and really, you know, working on goals and behaviors and like really developing a lot of the exercises that we've discussed today as well. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. And then also I've got this inner critic workshop coming up in the last 2 weeks of the month as well. So hopefully I'll see some of you there too. Again, really, you know, delving into some of the things that we were discussing today, tapping into the voice of the inner critic. How can we let that go? Because I mean, it's easier said than done. We need to really, you know, focus and practice and learn the right tools as well. So I've also got a couple of workshops coming up on that as well. So.
Sorry to interrupt, and thank you so much for your presentation today.
Oh, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Oh, great. I've just got a question, if that's okay.
Yes, of course, that would be great.
I'm just wondering, how come I feel like it's now that I need to have all these strategies in place, but, you know, a decade ago, I was doing life fine. What has made me now feel like I need these things in my life?
Oh, I mean, that's quite interesting. That's an interesting question. Thank you. So just to clarify, so what you're saying is that you feel like you need self-care now more than you did 10 years ago, and you're trying to work out what's changed?
Yeah, that's right. Like, I feel like my life feels like chaos, and that's why I'm feeling like I need these things to help keep me on track. But before, I didn't really feel like I just went through life fine.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a different answer. So the practical answer would be that your life is more chaotic. You know, you might you're also, your self-awareness will have increased a lot. You know, 10 years is a really long time, especially if you're doing, you know, if you're at Illuminations, attending workshops, doing things like that. Your level of awareness will have increased. I'm sure your level of responsibility in your life has increased a lot. Again, 10 years older, you know, you'll have a lot more responsibilities. You know, sometimes, you know, just as we get older and just the aging process as well, and can cause increased anxiety and worry. You know, we've also, our bodies have gone through a lot more wear and tear as well. So things like exercise, you know, going out, you know, working, work stress, you know, these things all really take a toll. So if you think, you know, 10 years back, you're, you know, a completely different person, a lot younger, you didn't have life experiences, positive ones and negative ones. So, you know, it all does build up. So that's why we can get, I would say the world is a lot more chaotic. You know, we're more switched on than we ever were before. You know, WhatsApp, yeah, I mean, everyone's on WhatsApp, you work on WhatsApp, you never switch your emails off. Like, you know, there's a lot going on in the world that, you know, would make you feel that you need to take these steps. Yeah. Is that
yeah
a lot of reasons, but I think, you know, and just being aware, you know, seeing self-care in the media, you know, it triggers people to be like, oh, maybe I need that, you know. So of course, you know, when we're always things are always presented to us and we see things a lot, you know, it makes us question as well. You know, do I need that? I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a bad thing if you feel that you need it. It just means that your self-awareness and, you know, your ability to try and take care of yourself is quite strong. So that's a good thing. Yeah, but if you want to come see me, please, I'll get someone to arrange it for you. Maybe we could talk about it a bit more. But I just would say that, because I heard you say the word chaos, I would just say that I think I hear that a lot. I think life is very chaotic at the moment. So much stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to be out, you need to be on Instagram, you need to do this, you need, you know, it's just so much. Keep in touch with everyone, even like the wheel that I was showing you as well. That's why, like, I really recommend for people to use these micro habits that I was telling you, because there's just no way that you can fit everything in. And, you know, even the pressure that you're supposed to be doing all these things can make you feel anxious.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Thanks so much for answering that.
To agree, really. Sorry for interrupting. Like, I just feel like you're right, is that we kind of are so much more, we need to be so much more accessible to everybody in our everyday lives now, more than we did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more kind of pressures on our time, our energy and our attention than there maybe was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like, even, you know, we're expected to be able to manage all of that as well. So again, that's another pressure, because it's like, seems like everyone else is doing it, but yeah, it's definitely a big concern. Especially Dubai is a very stressful place as well. We don't necessarily have the boundaries that we have in other places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I think if anyone doesn't have any questions, I think that's probably a good place to close up now. So just thank you very much for everyone being here. It's been great, and thanks for the questions as well. Yeah, and if there's anything else, you can reach me at Illuminations in GLT.